The medical station floated in the quiet sky above a neutral trade planet. Ships came and went like insects swarming around a light. Inside the shining halls of the station, silence ruled more than kindness. Machines beeped. Voices spoke in cold commands. And today, something strange happened. She was brought in by two tall guards from a distant colony. Her body was small, her skin pale and marked with bruises. Her breathing came slow and shallow like the final moments of a flame. The alien girl did not move. Her eyes were closed. She looked like a statue carved from sorrow. Around her stood beings from different worlds. Their eyes held no feeling. Their hands stayed behind their backs. They watched as the machine scanned her body. They listened to the results. Then they turned away. One said her organs were shutting down. Another said the cost of treatment was too high for someone like her. A third said she belonged to a non-aligned species not recognized by the council. A fourth gave a nod and said let her go. They wheeled her out on a low cart, her breath weaker than before, her name unknown. Her future already decided. She was marked as a case beyond help. A waste of medical resources. The cart rolled slowly toward the back exit. There was no crowd there. No lights. No one waiting, but someone did see a man stood near a wall, his jacket worn, his boots dirty with oil and dust. He had come for spare parts for his ship. His name was Leo. He was a human. One of the few left who traveled without crew or mission. He fixed things. He minded his own work. He avoided trouble when he could, but he watched the girl pass by. He saw the way her fingers twitched. He saw the slight rise and fall of her chest. She was not dead, not yet. He looked at the guards pushing the cart. They were already speaking of lunch. Leo stepped forward. He asked what happened to her. The guard gave a short answer. She was injured. Her case was reviewed. No further action required. Move along. Leo asked if anyone had tried to help. The guard looked at him with flat eyes. The answer was simple. Treatment denied. No compatible files in medical database. No record of species in alliance. No family. No identity. Leo said she was breathing. The other guard shrugged. Barely. Leo asked if he could take her. The guards laughed. They told him to sign a release form if he cared so much. They handed him a tablet with blinking fields. He signed. His name glowed alone on the form now. She was his problem. They walked away. The cart stayed behind. The girl still breathing. Still not moving. Leo bent down. He placed a hand near her shoulder. Her skin felt too cold, like metal left in snow. He checked her eyes. Still closed, but her lips moved for half a second. He could not hear what she said. Maybe it was not even a word. He picked her up slowly. She was light, too light. He carried her through the back corridor. His ship was docked near the edge of the station. A simple vessel with a patchwork engine and a warm little cabin inside the ship. He cleared a bench and laid her down. He covered her with a thermal sheet. He opened the medkit he kept for emergencies. He scanned her. The results were strange. Her body chemistry did not match anything in the ship's system. She tried a few basic things. Hydration fluid, low-dose stimulants, weak antiseptics on her wounds. Her chest moved slightly faster. Her fingers curled again. A sign of something deep within trying to stay alive. Leo sat beside her for a long time, thinking, staring, feeling angry. He had seen people left to die before, on ruined outposts, in broken ships. But this felt worse. She was brought to a place that was made to save lives, and they chose not to. Not because they could not, but because she did not count. He looked at the nav screen. He checked his old contacts. One name came to mind. A woman who once helped his injured drone when no one else would. A strange little vet who lived far away in the edges of human space. Her name was Mira. She was not a doctor, but she had a way with life that others forgot. Leo sent a message. The signal took time. He waited. Minutes passed like hours. He watched the girl's face, then came the reply bring her. "I'll try, no promise." But no refusal either. Leo started the engines. The ship shuddered as it pulled away from the station. He looked back once through the rear screen. The station grew smaller, the lights colder. The girl remained still. But he could hear her breathing. Maybe that was enough for now. Maybe hope needed only one person to believe, and he believed not in rules, not in systems, but in the simple idea that life deserved a chance, even if no one else thought so. Even if she never knew his name, even if the stars watched in silence. Leo flew through the dark with a stranger in his carray. Stranger who had been left behind, but not anymore, not while he still had hands to hold her up, and not while there was one place left to try, a place where no one asked what species you were, only whether you wanted to live. The ship moved through empty space like a silent bird fleeing from storm clouds behind. The engines hummed low. The lights inside stayed dim to keep her calm. She still had not opened her eyes. Her body rested under thick layers of warmth. Her chest rose and fell with slow rhythm like waves that refused to vanish. Leo sat near her. Again, his hands were tired, his mind heavy. But he did not sleep. He kept checking her temperature. He gave her water through a small tube. He watched for signs. A twitch, a breath. Anything. The message from Myra had been short. She would help. No details, no delay. That was her way. Leo trusted her more than most. She had lived through worse. She had seen things break and still keep going. Outside the window, stars drifted past like forgotten dreams. Leo looked at them. He did not wonder where they led. He only cared about the one path ahead. Soon his ship reached the edge of human space. A small planet below came into view. Dry hills, old buildings. Wind that sang through dead trees. The vet's place was hidden on a quiet ridge far from the main colony. No sign, no gate. Only a faded tower and a long path of gravel. Leo landed near the hill. He picked the girl up again. Her skin was still cold, but softer now. Her breathing deeper. He walked up the path slowly. The wind pulled at his coat. The dust curled around his boots. The door opened before he could knock. Mira stood in the doorway, her hair gray, her eyes sharp, her hands covered in dirt and medicine. She looked at the girl. Then she looked at Leo. She said nothing, only turned and walked inside. Leo followed her. The inside smelled of herbs and iron. Strange tools lay on tables. Old books stacked high beside broken machines. A dog barked once, then ran into another room. A bird clicked from a perch above the window. Myra pointed to a table in the corner. Leo placed the girl there. Mira pulled gloves from a hook. She rolled up her sleeves. She began the work. She scanned the girl. She frowned. She took samples. She hummed low under her breath. She touched the girl's neck, then her ribs, then her forehead. Her face changed as she worked. Not fear, not doubt, but challenge. Leo asked if she could help. Myra said she did not know what the girl was. Not exactly. But her systems were not unlike others. Bones, blood, heart, all in wrong places. All still trying to do their job, she said. It was not hopeless. She asked if Leo had taken her from the station. He said yes. She asked if they knew. He said maybe not yet. Myra shook her head. She said they would find out. The ones who leave people behind often do not like it when someone else picks them up, but she said it did not matter. She called life sacred. She always had. No council, no system. No file could change that. She began to clean the wounds. She mixed fluids by hand. She used old earth tech blended with alien parts. She stitched where needed. She used light where tools failed. Her fingers moved fast but careful. Leo watched. Hours passed like soft echoes. The girl moved once. Her arm lifted a little. Mira smiled. She said it was good. A sign of fight. Later, Leo stepped outside to get fresh air. The sky above was wide and gray. No ships in sight. No voices in the wind. only the soft breath of the earth and the hope inside. One small building, he heard Mira call him back, and the girl had opened her eyes. They were large and full of confusion. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked like dry paper. Mira held her hand and told her to rest. She said healing was not fast. Not for bodies. Not for fear. The girl looked at Leo. She did not know him. But she stared for a long time. Then she reached out her hand. It shook, but it found his fingers. Leo took her hand and held it gently. He did not know what to say. So he said nothing. The room stayed quiet for a while. Later, Mira gave her something to sleep. She turned to Leo and asked what he planned next. Leo said he had no plan. He only knew he could not leave her behind. Not again. Mira nodded. She said the stars were changing. People were starting to forget what life meant. Machines did too much. Feelings got lost. But not all were gone. Some still remembered. The next day came cold and silent. Leo checked the news feed from the outer ring. A small alert blinked on the corner. A patrol was looking for a human ship that left the station without clearance. No name. But the shape matched his. He showed Mira. She said they would come. Not today, maybe. But soon. Leo said he would deal with them if they did. The girl slept in the next room. Her skin no longer pale, her breath no longer broken. Her body still weak, but no longer near death. Leo sat by her again. He remembered her lying on that metal cart, alone, forgotten, treated like waste. Now she was here, warm, alive, safe for now. He would protect that safety, even if it meant facing those who called her unworthy, even if it meant standing alone. He had made a choice. And choices like that did not fade in the wind. They became fire, and fire could light the path forward even in the darkest. Sky. The morning began with the sound of soft wind and the slow rustle of dry leaves outside the old clinic. Birds circled above the broken tower. The vet's dog lay near the door with half-closed eyes. Inside, the walls kept a calm silence. The girl had woken twice during the night. Her voice was too weak to speak more than a whisper. Mira gave her water. Through a soft tube. She placed warm stones near her feet to help with blood flow. She checked her heartbeat every hour. It was slow but steady. Leo sat on a wooden stool near her bed. He had not left the room since she arrived. His eyes looked tired. His back hurt, but he stayed. Sometimes he spoke simple words. He told her where she was. He told her she was safe. He told her that someone had not given up on her. The girl blinked when he spoke. She did not understand every word, but she understood the tone. She felt something calm in his voice. Mira came in holding a tray of tools. She told Leo that the swelling around her chest had gone down. The strange bruising on her back was healing. The organs were slow to recover, but no longer fading. She said her body was more stubborn than it looked. Mira asked Leo if he had seen this kind of species before. Leo shook his head. She looked like nothing from the nearby sectors. Her skin changed shades slightly with heat. Her blood was thin and bright like liquid copper. Her bones were hollow but strong. Her eyes had 2 layers of reflection like deep sea creatures. Mira said she might come from a place farther than any human had mapped. Leo said it did not matter where she was from. What mattered was that she was here now, alive in need, and not forgotten. Mira agreed. She had treated many strange creatures in her life. Some had tails with venom. Some had 3 hearts. Some had fur that sang when they were in pain. But this one was different. Not because of how she looked, but because of how she had been left behind, left to die, as if she meant nothing. Mira worked through the day. She mixed a serum made from local plants and alien enzymes. She created a breathing aid from a fish tank tube and a ship filter. She used an old Earth pulse reader to track recovery. Every hour she made notes on paper by hand. No machines, no data cloud. Only trust and instinct. The girl made a small sound in the afternoon. Not a word, more like a soft note. Leo leaned forward. She looked at him again. This time her fingers moved toward her chest. She pointed, then tapped once. Mira watched, she said. Maybe the girl was trying to say her name. Leo nodded. He asked softly, if her name began with that sound. The girl blinked twice, that was all, but it felt like a light had switched on inside the room. Leo said they would call her Hope until they learned more. Hope, a name that did not come from records, a name that was not listed in any council file, a name born from the will to survive. Mira said it was a good name. That evening, Leo stepped outside again. The wind had picked up. Dust danced across the ground. He looked up at the sky. He saw movement far above, a trail, a flash, not a star. His ship. He went inside and showed Mira. She nodded slowly. She said the patrol had arrived. The time was shorter than they expected. Leo said he would deal with it. Mira said she would not hide. They both stood by the girl's bed and waited. Not long after the knock came, 3 figures stood outside. All wore dark suits with high collars. Their faces showed no emotion. One held a device that blinked red. Another carried a scroll of council code. The third spoke. They said a human had removed a non-priority case from medical care without approval. They said the station had filed a report. They said they had tracked the signal to this location. They requested entry to take the subject back. Leo blocked the door. He told them she was no longer a subject. She was a patient, now a living being with signs of healing. The officer said it did not matter. Her case had been closed. Treatment beyond council law was forbidden. Mira stepped forward. She told them she was not under council law. She lived outside the trade zones. She treated who she wished. She told them to leave her land. Officer warned her of penalty. Leo spoke again. He said if they had left her to die, they had no right to take her. Now the officer raised a hand. The second pulled out the scroll again. Then a soft sound came from behind Leo, a cough. The girl had sat up weak, but sitting. She looked at the officers. She placed a hand on her chest. She tapped once again. Hope. The room froze. The officer lowered the scroll. Silence broke, not with words, but with the truth that stood before them. The girl they left behind had chosen to live. Leo said nothing more. He only stood beside her, and so did Mira. The officers looked at one another, then without another word they turned and walked away. The wind picked up again as the door closed inside the room. The light felt warmer. Girl leaned back into the bed, her breath steady, her eyes half open. Leo sat down beside her again. Myra smiled. The fire had not gone out, not yet. And maybe it never would, as long as someone kept feeding it with care, with courage, with the simple decision to choose life over silence. The wind outside had changed. It no longer whispered like before. It now pushed against the walls like a warning. The sky above the old hill turned darker, though no storm was coming. Inside the clinic, the air felt heavy. Hope lay on the bed with eyes open. Her chest moved steady but slow. She no longer shook with weakness. Her skin had gained a soft glow. The strange color of her veins was clearer now. Mira said it meant blood flow was improving. Leo said it meant strength was returning, but peace did not last. The next day brought a shadow that stayed. Another ship arrived. Larger, sleeker. No sound when it landed. 3 new figures stepped out, not like the officers before. These wore armor with lines that blinked. Their weapons were hidden, but everyone could feel the danger. They knocked once. They did not wait for reply. Mira opened the door. Leo stood behind her. Hope remained in the room with the dog near her feet. The leader stepped forward. He did not speak. He held a thin square panel in front of him. A report opened on the screen. It showed footage from the station. It showed Leo lifting Hope. It showed the date, the time, the face of the guard laughing. Then a voice played from the panel, a cold voice. It said the subject was to be returned for official closure. No care was to be continued. It was final. Leo stepped in front of the screen. He said she was alive, healing, sitting up on her own. That was proof enough. They had lost the right to call her a case. The leader lowered the panel. He looked at Mira, then at Leo, then at the clinic walls. He said if she was not returned, the full force of council action would Be taken, not just on the human, but on the land, on the clinic, on anything that stood in the way. Myra did not blink. She said the only thing standing between them and the girl was a truth they refused to see. She said she had seen enough to know when someone had not given up. She pointed to the small doorway where Hope now stood with one hand holding the frame. She was not strong yet. Her legs shook. Her lips were dry. But she stood, and she did it without being told. The leader stepped forward. Leo blocked him. The second officer pulled a small sphere from his belt. It glowed with a red core. Leo knew the shape. A signal beacon. If activated, it would call others. Soldiers. Machines. Drones. Leo raised his voice. He asked one question. What? Law said healing a living soul was wrong. What rule gave power to watch someone fade and call it mercy? The leader said nothing. Mira stepped forward now. Her hand held a small screen. It showed Hope's scan from 2 days ago. Then it showed today. Clear changes. Clear healing. Clear signs of recovery beyond accident or delay. She held up a recording. 2. Hope tapping her chest. Hope trying to speak. Hope lifting a spoon by herself just this morning. Myra said this was not interference. This was care. And care had no borders. Leo placed his hand on Hope's shoulder. She leaned slightly but stayed standing. She looked at the officers with calm eyes. Then she raised her hand and pointed to her heart again. Once, then twice. The room waited. She opened her mouth and made a sound, a small one, rough but clear. Hope. The leader looked at her. He blinked once, then turned to the second officer. The sphere was returned to the belt. The third officer stepped back. No one spoke for many seconds. Then the leader turned and walked out. No threats, no warnings, only silence. The ship rose without a word. Leo watched until it vanished inside the clinic. Mira sat down at her workbench. She took off her gloves and placed them on the table. Her hands shook. Just a little. She said she had not seen officers walk away like that in years. Leo said maybe even they felt something. Maybe even they could see what was real. Hope sat back on the bed. Her fingers played with the edge of the blanket. The dog curled beside her again. She looked around the room slowly, like she was learning the shapes of safety. Mira asked if Leo was ready for what came next. Leo asked what she meant. Mira said, the moment you choose life over silence, you light a fire in dark places. Some want that fire gone. Some want to understand it. Some want to hide from it. Leo said he was not running. Not after everything Hope had lived. Not because of rules. Not because of tech. Because someone said no to death and yes to her. He looked at Mira. He said the clinic might not stay safe much longer. Myra nodded, but she said it was worth it. Every time Hope looked at both of them, she did not understand every word, but she understood something else. She was not alone, not anymore, and no one would decide her. And not while she could still stand, not while someone stayed beside her. The breaking point had passed, and she had not broken. She had risen, and they had chosen to stand with her. The next morning came with a soft light that passed through the clouds. Above the ridge, the air felt still. No ships moved across the sky. No warnings, no threats. The silence was not heavy like before. It was calm now. It was a silence that held peace. Hope sat near the window, wrapped in a long brown coat that Mira had stitched by hand. Her legs were stronger now. Her back no longer leaned against pillows. She moved with care but without fear. Her eyes followed the light as it danced on the wooden floor. Leo brought her warm broth in a small bowl. She took it with both hands and drank slowly. Her hands no longer trembled. Her fingers felt real strength again. When she looked at Leo, there was a new kind of light in her eyes. Mira stood near the counter mixing herbs. Her face looked tired, but her voice held something warm. She spoke softly about the soil outside and the kind of plants that could grow if the rains came soon. She spoke not to fill space, but to make it feel safe. Hope listened to her voice like a child listens to a song before sleep. Leo checked the outer sensors one last time. No sign of patrols, no shadow of orbiting ships, no strange signals. It seemed the visitors from before had left without plans to return, but something had stayed behind later that day. Mira received a message from a small outpost in a nearby system. A junior officer who had been part of the earlier visit had recorded a private message. He had taken footage of Hope standing at the door. He had captured her voice. He had watched what had happened. And he had sent it to a friend in the outer media ring, now that footage had moved across sectors. Slow at first, but steady. Words like compassion and defiance began to spread. The message carried no violence. It only asked one question: if life could rise again with care, then why was it ever denied? Leo watched the footage play once more on his screen. Hope's voice was weak in the recording, but still clear. That one word spoken from her heart had reached far beyond this hill. It had reached people who had forgotten what care looked like. It had reached those who never knew. Mira said change does not come fast, but sometimes one breath is enough to stir the world. Hope sat outside that evening with her feet resting on soft earth. The wind passed through her short hair. She touched the plants near the steps. She hummed something quiet. Leo could not tell if it was a song or just the sound of thought. She looked at the sky, and then at Leo. She pointed upward, then at her chest, then made a slow sweeping motion as if showing flight. Leo asked if she wanted to go home. Hope paused, then shook her head. She pointed at the ground under her feet, then placed her hand on her heart. This was not the place she came from, but maybe it had become something more. Not home by birth, but home by choice. Myra came out with a small satchel of medicine. She gave it to Hope. Inside were small vials and written instructions made with pictures. She said the healing would still take time, but the body had found its path again. The worst was over. Hope took the satchel and bowed her head in thanks. It was not the same as the way humans gave thanks, but it held the same meaning. Leo helped her walk to the edge of the ridge where his ship was parked. The engines were quiet, the hull still worn, but inside it was ready. The ship had been repaired during the quiet days. Not just for him now, but for someone else. To Hope looked at the ship, then back at Mira. She walked toward the vet and wrapped her arms around her. Mira stood still at first, then returned the gesture, her hands gentle on the back of someone who had survived what others called hopeless. Leo watched them without speaking. This moment did not need words. Hope stepped into the ship. She looked back. Only once, not in sorrow, not in fear, but in gratitude. Engines started slow. The ship rose like a bird lifting from a broken branch. Myra waved once as dust circled her boots. The ship turned toward the stars. Hope stood near the window. Leo guided the vessel through open sky. He asked her what she wanted to do. Now she looked at him, opened the satchel, and took out the small scanner. She pointed to a symbol Myra had drawn. It meant search. She tapped the screen. Twice. Leo nodded. They would search not just for others like her, but for places like this, places where hope was not just a name, it was a promise. As the ship moved through the quiet stretch between stars, Hope rested her hand near the control panel. She felt the rhythm of flight, the hum of life in motion, the warmth of being given a second chance. And Leo knew he had not saved her. He had only reminded her that she mattered. She had saved herself the moment she chose to hold on. The story would spread not because of fame, but because truth has its own wings. The story would spread not because of fame, not because of fame, but because its truth has its own wings. And somewhere far away, someone forgotten would hear it and believe again. The galaxy would not change in one day, but it had changed just enough. One human took a stranger to a place where care still lived and gave her something stronger than medicine. Gave her hope, and she chose to carry it forward. The end.